Okay, so next we're going to create a contact form, and you can see I've already created some comments in the code here to show where that goes. So I'll go right in between those two comments on line 30 there, and we'll start off with our form element, which is an opening and closing form tag, like so. Now inside the opening form tag, we have to have two attributes. We have to specify our method, which is going to be post. And the next thing is the action, which is the file that is receiving whatever is submitted in the form. For right now, I'm just going to put the hashtag or the pound symbol in there. That's just shift and the number 3. This is just meant to be a placeholder. You could even really leave it blank if you like. So later on in a future exercise, we're going to point this toward a specific file on the back end that's going to actually process this form and send a email to the desired person. So in this case, we're just kind of mapping out only the front end. We're just doing the HTML involved in getting this form up and running. So for now, we don't really have to be concerned about the action. We're just going to leave this as a sort of a placeholder. Okay, so inside of this form here, I'd like to put some information. I'd like to create a couple inputs so people can put in their name, their email, their phone number, and also a brief message to me, and then click a submit button. So I would like to put an input here that they can type into, and I'm going to give this a type of text because I want them to put some alphabetical characters into it. I want them to be able to type their name here. So it's important that I also give this a name so that when the form is submitted, it can store that information into some type of name. And although it sounds redundant, I'm actually going to call it name because that's what they're writing there. I'm giving this input a name of name. And the reason why is this is their username. This is the name of the person who's sending the email, actually, is a better way of describing that. And this one, we're going to also give placeholder text. Let's say placeholder, and we're going to say your name. We'll say your name, right? So they know their name goes there. How do we make this required? That's right. We say required. We write the word required at the end there, like that. I think I'll take off word wrap and just scroll over a tiny bit, like that. Okay. And then we'll go down to the next line, and let's create another input. And we're going to give this one a type of email. Okay, so type of email is pretty useful when you're actually trying to get the person's email. And the reason why is that in HTML5 compatible browsers, it will validate if it's actually an email address or not, and it will prevent it from submitting if somebody types something in there that doesn't resemble an email address of some kind. All right. And maybe email should be required too, because we want to use this as like a contact mailer. And how are we going to know who to message back unless they're able to put that in? All right, let's do another input here. And this one we're going to do a different type. We'll say this one is a type of tel, which brings up the numeric pad on different devices. When you click inside this input, it should bring up the numeric pad by saying type telephone. And we'll give this guy a name also and to associate it with, and we'll say phone is how we will word that. And then we'll say placeholder, and for placeholder here we'll say phone, and we'll also mention to them in the placeholder that this is optional. They don't really have to tell us this unless they want to. Okay. And let's see. So actually that's it. After we have name, phone, email, and then after that we want them to be able to put in their message. So what I'll do is I'll create a text area like this using the opening and closing text area tag, like so. And then inside of this text area, I'm going to tell it how tall to be. I'll say it should be at least 10 rows of text. You could hit return 10 times. 10 rows of type will fit before we get a scroll bar to appear. And we'll give this guy a name also. We'll say name equals message. All right, and then lastly, we will add in an input with a type of submit, and that will give us our submit button. And in order to label the button, so we can read some text on it, we'll write the word send on the button, like that. And that should be good to go. Let's give this a save, and let's come back to the browser and refresh. Awesome. And here we have the iframe map, and then down below the form we just created. So if I zoom in on this here, you can see it's not stylized yet. We're going to beautify this and make it look lovely later using CSS, but for now it's just kind of this generic, like, horizontally stacked form. So we can click inside of here and we can type a name. My name is Bob. I can click inside email. You can see the placeholder text there will disappear when I type, and we can say my email is bob@bob.com. The phone number is optional, so I don't have to type that. If I wanted to, it would be something like this, I guess. And then I can type a message like hello, something like that. Now, some of these fields are required. For example, if I don't type in a name and I try and click send, it says please fill out this field. So this is that HTML5 friendly required attribute that we placed inside there, is telling me I have to fill this out before it will submit. And again, if you want to be able to stylize this a little more, you're going to probably end up using something like JavaScript or a jQuery plugin to stylize these forms, which we won't go over in this class, but perhaps in a future class. Okay, so here we have name. We'll fill that out again. Let's do this one, which this one has two things going for its validation. Number one, we have required, so if we don't type anything in, it should say it's required. If we also put in an email address that doesn't make sense, like if I put in like fake out sucka, and then we try and send this, it says please enter an email address. So we have to put something like bob@bob.com. I guess you can kind of still fake it, but it's a little more work. And then when we submit, it would post this information in the form to the specific file that we list in the action attribute. Okay, so in this case, we just put a pound symbol as a placeholder, so when I click send, it actually just refreshes the page. Nothing really happens there. But as I said a little bit later on in a future exercise, I'll at least give you guys some backend to make this function. So next, you're going to want to move on to the next code challenge and implement these new elements that you've learned into your new site.